Hi guys, all right, so here's the month ahead report for the Aries New Moon Solar Eclipse, the second new moon cycle in the sign of Aries. Last month we had the last moon cycle of the last eclipse cycle in the sign of Aries at the first degrees of Aries. It was all about redefining ourselves in preparation for this second Aries new moon solar eclipse, which will be month number 1 of the next eclipse cycle, the next 6-month eclipse cycle. Coming in, and this one all about initiating, going forward. As I said last month, again, it was about redefining in preparation for this month to be able to move forward. All right, so this is going to be the month overview for this Aries new moon cycle that begins on April 20th and goes to May 19th. And hopefully by now you've had a chance to look at the eclipse preview that I posted on Telegram, as well as the full access dashboard, as well as a video blog. I actually posted it for everyone to be able to see because that's important. It goes over the finer details of what I see for this eclipse cycle up ahead. With that in mind, I do like to start off with the Sabian symbols for these next set of eclipses. Eclipses always come in at least pairs, sometimes in sets of 3. In this case, we have 2 eclipses, and it's always the case that it'll be either a solar eclipse, then a lunar eclipse, or a lunar eclipse, then a solar eclipse. It's one and the other, because a solar eclipse is always a new moon and a lunar eclipse is always at a full moon. All right, so we have the Aries new moon solar eclipse happening on April 20th, again at the 29th degree of Aries, which is kind of taking Aries to the next level. It's saying that we have the wisdom now to be able to embark. It's more determined, kind of go type of energy. And the Sabian symbol that comes with that Aries new moon degree is the realization of natural boundaries, focalization, needing to be focused. It's like the spiritual warrior kind of dead set on the path that it needs to go in. And the lunar eclipse, which is going to be in the sign of Scorpio on May 5th, 2 weeks later at the full moon in Scorpio, happening at 14 degrees of Scorpio, comes with the Sabian symbol of the early steps in the development of a mind seeking to be attuned to a higher level of human evolution, with the keyword of future-oriented growth. Now remember that on the preview I said that this would be an eclipse cycle where it's themes of lots of destabilization in the collective, because the new moons and the full moons are not happening in the exact opposite time, in the exact opposite signs, which is going to be a theme for us from here through to the next year. So a time of destabilization that would require us to pioneer new ways forward. And as part of that, we would need to adapt to constant change. That this would be a time of intense extremes, especially with Pluto being in a square to the nodal axis, and the nodal axis shifting signs, which will all take place at the time of the midpoint. Now, if you've been following me for some time, you know that I've been following eclipses for several years now, and I see that it's always at the time of the midpoint that we have a sense of fruition, kind of like tangible manifestations, a surge of energy where all of a sudden there's a lot of rapid fire developments. And you'll see that on the next slide when I show the visual that goes along with that. But to have Pluto coming into an exact square with the nodal axis that then switches signs, this is again suggesting that we are really entering a time of extremes, that this will be an unprecedented, I know I keep saying that every eclipse cycle, but this one is certainly taking it up a big notch. And so in this month of month number 1, with this Aries new moon solar eclipse happening on April 20th and the Scorpio lunar full moon lunar eclipse happening on May 5th, I did say that the themes for this month were all about getting into that mindset of pioneering for the long term, pioneering a radical new plan forward, is what you'll see me talk about on the month ahead report. And just a quick review. Here's that visual that I mentioned just briefly before. Again, applying it to the eclipse cycle. As you know, I apply this visual to the monthly moon cycle every month. But it is at that midpoint that we start to see that seed sprouting above the surface. Again, tangible manifestations of what that eclipse called for. In this case, pioneering for the long term, pioneering a radical new plan forward. So do anticipate that we are planting seeds this month. And while we will get some sort of harvest by the end of this moon cycle, we're going to see deeper layers of this pioneering a radical new plan forward coming through more emphatically around the time of the midpoint of the eclipse. But as a quick review of some of the upgrades that this eclipse cycle is calling us to. Remember, everything that happens in our lives is all about elevating our state of consciousness. That's the sole purpose as to why we've come here to incarnate here on earth, here in this life. So some of the upgrades and challenges that we're going to be faced with is one, dealing with paradigm shifts. And certainly we're going to see more bifurcations in the collective, those not wanting to deal with the paradigm shifts or operating from unconscious expressions versus those operating from conscious expressions. So it's always nice just to take a look at what some of those contrasts would be. In unconscious expressions, certainly in Aries New Moon, lots of anger, lots of aggression, denial, coercion, forcing people, forcing our way to either resist or combat against these paradigm shifts. Whereas a more conscious expression is ready to pioneer, is willing to embody that sense of I need to pioneer new creative ways with others in mind to deal with these paradigm shifts, to navigate these paradigm shifts, understanding that everything is there as part of to help us with our evolutionary growth. Now, another theme will be dealing with limitations, dealing with our own limitations. Again, the themes of denial, rigidity, and thinking, using others, falling into fear and panic would be those of unconscious expressions, where in those in more conscious expressions would be embodying that knowing, would double down on their knowing that they are powerful beings having a human experience, that we can create and manifest new pathways, new possibilities, and that is having a good understanding of our not only our instincts to know when it's time to get into that present moment, and we should more and more constantly be in that present moment awareness to be able to realize that everything is possible and manifest from that mindset. And manifest new assets as well. What do we need to be able to move beyond our limitations, or what limitations we're experiencing? Then managing fear was another theme. Again, we can see people maybe falling into fear and panic, using others, codependencies, forcing their will upon others, a lot of escapism, a lot of denial. Whereas in the more conscious expressions, it's saying, nope, I accept what the universe is giving me. This is a situation that's being presented to me. It's for my evolutionary growth. And so we're managing fear through embodying spiritual practices that fortify our faith and sense of purpose and really get us into that present moment awareness to be able to manifest new pathways forward. And then last but not least, engaging with others. It is an Aries New Moon, and so the opposite sign is Libra, so we always want to take into account of the opposite sign. And again, there could be this codependencies, entangling, controlling, usurping others and their boundaries rather than in the more conscious expressions. We've learned a lot about this over the last 6 months, the understanding of what empowered bonding is. I honor your boundaries, I honor my boundaries, and we kind of come together from two complete spaces and mindsets, and we come together with the purpose of expanding each other, not limiting, and really expanding our sense of purpose. All right, so moving on to this Aries New Moon solar eclipse itself, and of course for those on the full access group, I will have a more detailed review of this Aries New Moon. But it is an Aries New Moon at the 29th degree in a square to Pluto. This suggests that we are going to be really coming into a stark new reality and needing to pioneer into that stark new reality. And we have Mars coming into a square with Chiron. Also, Mercury getting ready to go retrograde. It will go retrograde the day after this Aries New Moon cycle. And Venus in a semi-square to Aries. And so with this new moon, there is this sense of kind of needing to stop, a pause in forward movement, a need to reinvent and redirect as we adjust to a whole new paradigm. Now, it will be a Scorpio full moon, and so there's something that we're going to need to commit to at the time of the full moon, something that we're grounding into. And I think it has a lot to do with Mercury retrograde. Mercury going retrograde at the time of this eclipse is highly significant. It suggests that our whole perspective of reality is going to shift, not only with this Mercury retrograde, but its themes are going to be with us for the entire eclipse cycle. So we're getting glimpses as we step into things, and we're getting glimpses of a future that's coming. Mercury is coming into a conjunction with Uranus, but it's not going to meet up with it exactly. It's going to move retrograde afterwards. And had that Mercury and Uranus met up, it would be like lots of radical changes happening all at once, sudden, unexpected flurries, etc. But it's almost as if Mercury kind of gets a glimpse of Uranus and says, whoa, I need to go back and I need to readjust. I need to change things because I see on the horizon there's going to be a lot of changes up ahead. So this is an eclipse cycle where we're needing to adjust to a new paradigm that's saying get ready for constant change in the long term. Think for the long term. Think about that for the long term and get ready once again to pioneer a radical new way forward as part of that. Make a new plan. You're making a commitment to pioneering a radical new way forward. Now, some of the roadblocks or the shadow work that we're going to have to deal with this month. Well, once again, we have an Aries New Moon, so it's going to be about curbing anger and frustration, this time due to redirects, due to limitations and boundaries that we might face, a stark new reality that's calling us to change. Also, needing to reprioritize ourselves what is most important as we pioneer radical new ways forward. We are entering a period of extremes, and this can be even possibly within ourselves. And as I said on the membership group, that we would need to start, as part of this pioneering a radical new way forward, really take the whole idea of daily protocols to support our body-mind states in these changing times even more seriously. So it is something I'll be discussing on today's live session call. I am recording this on, what is this date today? It's April 16th, Sunday, April 16th. And so this is a month that we really need to take that into consideration, how we will move forward within these changing times. Saturn is now in Pisces. There's a dissolving of structures, and it's saying that, a big theme of that is about incorporating healthier spiritual structures even within our daily routines to be able to support us through these massively changing times. All right, so I have a new format, and I hope this one actually helps build on what's already the resources that are available there. Usually I do a week by week play on a whole different slide, and this time I decided to incorporate the monthly breakdown of transits because it's there on the member dashboard for you to follow along with. And again, on the right, you see, again, the theme of pioneering a radically new way forward. So do keep that in mind because that's what we're working towards the end of this moon cycle. We might not have this understanding, this plan of how we're going to pioneer a new radical way forward at the time of the new moon, but certainly a seed is planted at that time that by the end of the moon cycle, we have formulated entirely. So with that in mind, we'll go ahead and get started. We have the Aries New Moon, Solar Eclipse, and in the first week, this is the theme for that first week is about embodying the courage to redirect. And why do I say that? Well, some of the main transits that we have are Sun square Pluto. This is coming into profound realizations of a stark new reality. It's like we're embodying it at that time. Then Mercury goes retrograde the day after that. And we have a couple of other key transits that happen right after that. Sun conjunct the North Node is calling us to embody a new frontier forward. Venus sesqui-square Pluto. This is where we realize that as part of that, we're going to have to make some stark adjustments when it comes to relationship and money dynamics. And then at the end of the week, as the moon enters the sign of Leo, this is where Mars squares Chiron, and this is when we fully feel into, and it could be triggering where we have to redirect and we're called to step into that Leo courage in order to face that. Now, focusing our attention to that visual to the right, remember that it is during the week of the new moon, so from April 20th to the 27th, that's when situations start to seed in our life, new plots, new characters. In this case, because it is an eclipse, it's doing so quite dramatically. So we're going to have a whole new landscape. Eclipses normally do that, but with Sun square Pluto, this is dramatic. So a seed is planted at that time, and in that week, it's like we're embodying this courage to make some redirections, which are going to catalyze this this harvest by the end of the month of pioneering a radical new way forward. In the second week, the moon is in that sign of Leo for the first quarter moon, and from April 27th through the May 5th, this is about courageously adjusting to a new plan forward. It's adjusting to a need to redirect and getting ready to commit to a new plan forward. Pluto goes retrograde on May 1st, and it's not going to go direct until the very end of this eclipse cycle on October 11th, just 3 days before the end of this eclipse cycle. So there's something that we are going within. We're internalizing at that time. We're beginning a journey within to really find the power within to which to come out with at the end of this eclipse cycle. So this is definitely an eclipse cycle where we are going to be stepping into greater states of empowerment. It's an internalization process. It's kind of like we're putting it in the oven to come out by the end of this eclipse cycle. Remember, this theme of pioneering a radical new way forward is not only just with us for the first month, but it's an overarching theme for the entire eclipse cycle. The other two aspects that are happening or significant transits in the second week is Venus square Neptune, which can bring a bit of chaos in the downside of things, especially that right after that Venus sextiles Jupiter. So if we're in chaotic circumstances and we're escaping reality and there can be a sense of scatteredness when it comes to relationship dynamics, then we're really taking off from a bad footing. But in the higher consciousness of things, this is where divine synchronicity comes into play of things, given that we've embodied that courage to be able to adjust to a new plan forward in that week. And so in that second week, which is from April 27th through May 5th, this is where we're overcoming subconscious blocks within us, overcoming fears with that Pluto going retrograde to be able to get more future oriented with a way forward, or realize that we need to come into a new plan forward. And so there's going to be maybe subconscious blocks that we're working within ourselves that week of how to step up more courageously. All right, then in week number 3, that's when the Scorpio full moon comes in. And in that week, from May 5th to the 12th, this is committing to a future-oriented growth, saying that, hey, as part of this adjusting to a new plan forward, we have to be able to realize what's coming up in the future, and be able to not only survive, but thrive. And in that week, Venus moves into the sign of Cancer, comes into a quincunx with Pluto. This is going to be one of 3 main talks that she has with Pluto over this eclipse cycle. The next one will be June 5th, and the last one will be October 6th. And it's like we're securing a new foundation at that time. The Sun then conjuncts Uranus. This is a reinvented sense of inspiration coming through, and lots of signs, lots of synchronicities and destined realignments with Venus sextile the North Node. Remember that in week number 3, this is the week of breakthroughs. This is the week where we start to see the momentum, we start to see the tangible manifestation of the seeds that were planted in at the time of the new moon. So we start to feel like we have this plan that's starting to formulate, and we're feeling a little bit more solid at that time. And then we have the Aquarius last quarter moon, or the last quarter moon that will be in the sign of Aquarius. And this last week from May 12th through the 19th, that's reinventing to a radical new way forward. We've gotten a plan. We're ready to leave this old version of ourselves and really commit to that new plan forward. And there is a sense that as part of that, it's like we've come into this new understanding, or this paradigm that says we have to just get accustomed to the fact that we're going to be in a constant state of reinvention. We're going to have to keep looking at our finances, keep looking at our money and relationship dynamics, and reinvent them. It's a new paradigm that will require consistent surveillance of that. Mercury will go direct during that week on May 15th. It's kind of like our minds are attuned to the new surrounding. We've done what we've needed to do as far as the retrograde. Sorry, I didn't mention that during week number 1. Remember, Mercury will be retrograde from week 1 through to 3. And so we're realizing or retracing steps made or retracing decisions and steps we made from April 7th through the 20th. But hopefully we took clues from that pre-shadow. And so it's about refinements rather than being sideswiped, hopefully. Anyway, so by May 15th, Mercury goes direct, and we have a solid new understanding of the pitfalls that we made during the pre-shadow. We've made the course corrections. We're understanding the new surroundings. Jupiter enters Taurus, and not only that, the day about 2 days after squares off with Pluto. That's huge. Jupiter entering Taurus means that we're moving into where it's kind of like where we're pioneering, we're grounding in. It's like the way that we move forward, the way that we navigate new territory is more grounded. It's gradual. We're willing to take our time with it. Maybe we've realized that we have some time to be able to prepare, and that this eclipse cycle is about preparing for that, and preparing for what? Major radical change, complete new territory, but we're willing to do it solidly and gradually with Jupiter now in the sign of Taurus. We end, and that will be the last, you see the last visual there in that seed analogy, and this is the last week of full harvest coming in, and the last transit that's coming through that week is Mercury sextile Saturn. So that's pretty nice. We end this moon cycle feeling more mentally secure about navigating unknown territory. We've come into this harvest of, hey, I have a new plan forward on how to pioneer in a radically new way. All right, so that's what I have for the month ahead. I hope that helps give you kind of a scope of what we're working on. Helps you stay focused throughout the month of the goal that we're moving to, even during times of where we're feeling a little bit anxious and nervous and oh my goodness. Just know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel of it all. Now, on the member dashboard, I do have the updated synchronicity log with the intentions page that you can print double-sided or individually. Also, the monthly breakdown of transits for this Aries New Moon solar eclipse cycle, and the moon moods logs, or the moon moods log is also available, along with the calendar alerts file, the file that alerts you 2 hours prior to the moon entering a new sign. I just want to make mention that I just noticed that the notification doesn't say 2 hours prior, so I'm going to make sure that the notification does say that, so that you're not confused as to why am I getting this, and then 2 hours later Lyra's sending something on Telegram showing that the moon has moved. That's because the alerts, the notifications were meant to indicate that it was a 2 hour notice that the moon was about to switch signs. Anyway, I'll get that fixed. And again, you can upload that import file to your phone or desktop and get notified. And it's a great way to start tracking how you are influenced by the shifts of the moon. And last but not least, I do have an updated eclipse journal, given that we are now entering a whole new eclipse cycle. And this eclipse journal is kind of like an overarching journal. So you take the notes that you've built or gathered from the synchronicity log. You also jot down where these eclipses are happening in your chart, and the following new moons and full moons as well. So you start to get an understanding of how that works. And I do anticipate to be a little bit more hands-on with the full axis group this next eclipse cycle. So do watch out for that. I will have special videos in place to be able to guide you through that a little bit, again, more hands-on. So with that, wishing everyone a blessed Aries solar eclipse. Welcome to a whole new chapter. Bye for now.